Delighted to welcome into studio Martin Ward, a retailer in your area, shopkeeper up on the Rathfriland Road. It is Spar, isn't it, Martin?
Yes, Centra.
Centra, I get confused in these matters. I leave this shopping to somebody else. And Henry Reilly of UKIP, party that's doing exceedingly well across the water.
Yeah.
We could see you being called to very high office at some stage, if the elections go. Lads, this is about, the fundamental of this is, you put a flag up on your roof supporting the cause of the Palestinian people who have been savagely bombed over the recent weeks. I think it's 8 weeks now. Four weeks in Gaza, and you were supporting them. You felt it was a wrong move, the flag shouldn't have been put up, that it was offensive to people. Does that more or less cover the ground in this instance?
Well, sorry, Ronan, it's not that I'm supporting, I'm supporting the humanitarian. I was just trying to highlight to the world the disaster that is becoming Gaza.
Yeah,
it's not that I'm taking any side.
Oh, I know, because I wouldn't see you as a political person.
Absolutely not.
I think your politics is the business of being in business. That's what you're doing, and you've always done that. But can we get one thing out of the way, first of all, lads, for both of you? Ban Ki-moon of the United Nations said yesterday, a deadly attack on a UN school, and he described it as a moral outrage and a criminal act. That's the Secretary General of the United Nations. That's a standalone comment. There's no sort of brackets in which that exists. The Secretary General of the United Nations, in that organization which we put our trust time and time again, has described the attack on the school as a moral outreach and a criminal act. You agree with that?
Well, totally. If there's rules within war as there's rules everywhere, I do believe, and they seem at this minute in time, in this particular part of the war, in this part of the world, there is no rules. And like, combatants are combatants, but this isn't. The might of the Israeli military in this actual incident, it's just doesn't stand up. And equally, the American.
Hold on to the thought. Don't go away from stay where you are with what you said. Never mind the Americans for the moment. Can you support what Ban Ki-moon said there?
Absolutely. And if you go back...
That's interesting. Don't rush away going back.
No.
Absolutely, you said. Yeah, you can support what he said.
But it's important that you clarify that point.
We're going to clarify
because the UN Secretary General also pointed out, and I have the statements stored in my laptop here, that putting missiles into that exact same school was a violation of international rules and should not be tolerated.
Yeah.
And he requested Hamas to remove those, and Hamas refused. So it's a... Right, I'll let you go back to...
All I'm saying to you is I want to separate the elements here.
Yes.
Because Hamas has a right, the Palestinian people has the right to exist. The Israeli people have a right to exist. Each to live their lives in peace, and that goes without saying. Now, if people are firing rockets one at the other, that's not good.
But that's part of the problem, because everywhere you go regarding this issue, especially in Northern Ireland, you'll find that it's tainted, pro-Palestinian support is tainted with a very, very naked and rampant anti-Semitism, which, is so vulgar, it's frightening. Yeah. And I certainly have Jewish friends in Northern Ireland who are extremely concerned that, they've had their mosque targeted. And they're very, very concerned that this is just part of this latent anti-Semitism.
But what's also frightening, Henry, is that you seem that you have to qualify the statement that you felt an attack on a school, a constancy of attack against Gaza, which is resulting in women and children being killed, that you seem to have to qualify that in some way. No, that's frightening.
Look, we're in a very, very difficult situation, because if I was throwing rockets and bombs into Martin Ward's backyard, Martin Ward would at some stage say, Henry, stop it, please stop it. Now, if I said, piss off, Martin, sorry,
going.
If I said, clear off, Martin, I just don't like you, I can't accept your existence, I hate you as a people, I'm going to keep throwing these rockets. Now, at some stage, Martin's going to say, right, well, I'm going to shoot back at you, I'm going to try and stop you. Now, if Martin's shooting back at me and I take a baby and set that baby in my lap, and say to Martin, right, shoot away, Martin, and if you kill this baby, it's your fault.
It's a big assumption, Henry.
No, but
it's a big assumption that Hamas...
That is the reality on the ground, Rowan. That is the reality on the ground.
The Palestinian mothers and fathers there are not taking their babies and offering them up as sacrifices to the Israeli weaponry.
No, the Palestinian families aren't, but the tragedy of this is that Hamas, that is a very, very vulgar, violent organisation, is actually making sure that children and families stay in the areas where they know will be targeted by Ismaili missiles.
But they know where to go. They've nowhere to go. They're jammed like sardines in a tin.
Sardines. That's another myth. They're not jammed like sardines. They can get out. There are videos circulating on YouTube that clearly show Hamas activists hurting children and families and not letting them leave the areas. Whenever Israel has said, we have identified Hamas rocket cache, we are going to bomb that area, now please leave. Hamas actually herd the people into those areas. Now that's been condemned by the United Nations. It's been condemned by credible journalists. But yet the Palestinian supporters here in Northern Ireland just, they seem blind to these facts.
What does this mean to you?
I think neither me nor Henry really know the total, absolute facts of what is out there at this minute in time. And just say, Henry, you were on about mosques being attacked in Northern Ireland. The Jews goes to the synagogues, it's the Arabs that goes to the mosques. It's just...
Yeah, but that's neither,
it's neither here nor there.
No, that's neither here.
Well, it was a synagogue in North Belfast that was attacked by Republicans.
Yeah, that's true.
But that is happening
across...
not
necessarily by
Republicans. Well, the graffiti that was sprayed on.
Okay.
It's happening at the moment across the world as a sort of a... The people are trying to take their frustrations because the governments aren't listening to anybody in the world. Now, this week alone, there has been an awful awakening or consciousness of people right across the world that this particular savage war must be settled once and for all, some way or other. I think that is actually why I went as a protest to put up the flag in the first place. And as I said, I'd put up an Israeli flag along with it when I hear there is peace settlement between the two sides. But this is, you're telling me that there's a ceasefire happening at the moment.
72 hours.
72,
I think that's
but
what it is.
It has never been upheld properly, but that's okay. On the Israeli side, I think they're making political gain out of that today, possibly.
What are the facts as you see it? What is it that motivates you?
Well, the facts are, if you look on the street, the people in Gaza themselves, they are, Henry, it's the biggest, it's known fact in the United Nations, it's the biggest open-air prison in the world today. Forget about Guantanamo Bay.
So how do you resolve that?
Now, if you look at, there's two sides of the conflict. You have Tel Aviv, the people there on the television at night, in opulence of wealth in Tel Aviv.
How do you resolve that then?
Well,
see, this is the problem, Martin, because whenever people say free Gaza, whenever you question them in that, it actually means destroy Israel. The Gazans just cannot accept the fact that Israel exists. Now, regardless of how Israel was formed in 1948, regardless of that, you and I must sit here and say, the state of Israel exists. There's 8 million people live in it. We have to respect their right to call themselves Israelis.
Have you a problem with that?
Yeah. Let's clear that up. Could I go back there then? That's okay, but let's get a few more facts there now. The Palestinians or the people in Gaza, and people in Gaza, they're not all Palestinians. They have been living in poverty this last year. They have been locked in, Henry, this last 8 years in Gaza. There's a 2-mile excursion border. You have to walk a tunnel 700 yards to get into Gaza. The people in Israel themselves do not know what the conditions that the people are living
Martin,
in Gaza.
Will you let me answer that?
Yeah, please.
Whenever the Fatah Israeli government had the agreement on Israeli withdrawal from the Gaza Strip, prior to that, whenever Israel was occupied, the Gazans had employment. They were able to go to Tel Aviv to work. They were able to go to Tel Aviv to live. Israel is only 78% Jewish. It's actually 22% Islam or Islamic and Christian. But as soon as Israel withdrew and the Islamic militants took over, they destroyed the whole business infrastructure that Israel had put in place. Israel evicted 20,000 Israeli settlers from the West Bank to accommodate a peace. And as soon as Hamas and their cohorts got that peace, what did they do? They started to attack Israel again.
But
now,
the victims...
you can't have a peace and have a good infrastructure in place, including hospitals, greenhouses, agriculture, irrigation systems, all put there by the Israelis.
In the West Bank. In the West Bank.
No, in Gaza. And as soon as the Israelis left, the Gazans, what did they do? What did the people in power do? They destroyed that infrastructure to keep their own people in poverty.
It seems to me what you're saying is that it's okay for Israel to do what it's doing because of Hamas's attack on Israel. Now, the people themselves within Gaza will tell you, and a teacher from Newry, from this town, spoke on this program a fortnight ago about being there, and the people of Gaza telling her, we are not terrorists, we are not Hamas, we are being punished all the time. So if you have a situation, you seem to be justifying, now I'm using the word carefully, and you can qualify it in whatever way you want, but you seem to be justifying the Israeli attack on Gaza because of what Hamas is doing. And the United Nations give the Israelis the precise coordinates, the GPS coordinates of the schools, and then within hours the schools were hit.
Well, again,
you can't prove that.
It's recorded 15 times actually, though.
But Rowan, the thing about that school is, Hamas are an organisation that are very skilled in propaganda. We've seen...
This is not them, this is the United Nations Secretary General,
and I can
Ban
show,
Ki-moon. A moral outrage and a criminal act.
But Rowan, we're getting off track here.
Keep us on track.
The big issue is that this issue has to be resolved.
Correct.
Now, how do we resolve this issue?
Good question.
The only way that the issue can be resolved is for Hamas and their supporters to sit down and say, right, we're not going to be able to destroy the nation of Israel.
Isn't that happening already today? They're speaking, their delegations are going to Cairo.
The problem that Israel has is that,
Israel's going as well.
Yes, I know they are, and I hope they do get a resolution. And whenever we see these children on TV crying and made homeless, it breaks my heart. It literally breaks my heart to see those Palestinian kids like that. But, and I'm not...
I hate the but coming in there.
It's not the buts, but it's again, we have to look at the picture in the round.
But don't blame the children for the terrorism, as you would see it, of Hamas.
Yes, exactly. And if you do read independent news channels, not the BBC or not Fox News, because or not Al Jazeera, If you look at them all and then make your own opinion, it probably sits in the middle. I think Israel really has to be congratulated for the restraint that it's shown over 8 years of rocket attacks. And then the three young children leaving school to go home, being brutally murdered.
Yeah. If you come to me to kill me, I will come and I'll try to kill you back.
Yes.
I'll not come and kill your granny. I'll not come and kill your babies. I'll come and try to stop you.
Yes.
Well, shouldn't Israel be doing that with Hamas?
Israel is trying to do that. If you look at the reports of the IDF, the number of aborted attacks because of children being herded into certain areas. Hamas... 2,000
men, women and children Palestinians dead.
Yes.
64 Israeli soldiers dead.
Can I ask you, and can I ask Mark a question? In Syria, in Aleppo, 300 Christians taken out and beheaded because they wouldn't renounce their faith. Not a word from any of the Western governments. Go into Iraq, Mosul, 280 children killed in Mosul. Beheaded, their heads put in railings.
None of this is good.
Not a word from any of the things. No. The only reason, Martin and Rowan, why Israel is attacked for defending itself is because they are Jewish. This is blatant, rampant anti-Semitism.
Sorry, I must answer.
And it's something that people in Ireland, in particularly, have to come to terms with.
Please, let Martin
The Israeli state's there. It's never going to be destroyed.
You've made that point, Martin.
Sorry, I need to clarify. I have nothing against... I actually support the Jewish people in all of their doings.
Well, you won't sell their goods, and you're putting posts on your...
Sorry.
Whoa, stop.
I haven't boycotted nobody.
Hold on.
No.
He's not the mayor of Newry.
I haven't done anything.
He's an individual retailer.
Are you aware of your Centra Facebook page? Please go and look at it if you're not aware of it.
I don't go on Facebook because I don't like this.
Well, whoever's organising your Facebook page is
we're off the issue again.
For
I just need to tell you
Israeli
something.
goods. And actually, one of the posts that was on it, Martin, actually said something about Jews being responsible for all the evil in the world. Now, I think that's very.
Sorry,
I read it. I read it.
I am my own man, and I.
Well, you should monitor
things.
your Facebook page and make sure that provocative things like that are not said, because it's very, very damaging.
Like
this man, I know, this man has not done that. What you did was put a flag on the roof, and that you can stand over.
For the humanitarian
I can bring
slaughter.
it up. I can bring it up here now, and it's bizarre because it shows. Cans of Carlsberg, good value cans of Carlsberg, and then the next post up says boycott Israel, Queen Bee, these types of things, Martin.
Martin has already said he does not know
We've steered off the issue here. The issue is, Ronan asked here, what should be the outcome of this? I hope that in the next week, if we keep praying, it's a month now, the 8th, 3 more days till it's a full month of this onslaught, which has become Gaza. And like you hear the words disproportionate. Okay, Israel has this Iron Dome fence, and if there's been rockets going in there this last X amount of years, they have the best system in the world to protect themselves against that. Like, I haven't seen, now yes, I believe one Arab or something has tumbled a bus and one person got killed in Jerusalem yesterday. That's the people in Israel are shut off from this. They don't know what's happening in Gaza.
Martin, the reason why there's that security infrastructure between Gaza and Israel, that never was there until the Islamic jihadists started sending kids into buses, blowing Jewish people to pieces. They sent them into pubs. Can we please look at the present day? They sent them.
That's happening all over the Arab world, all over the Middle East.
Yeah, but
where is it coming from? Who's starting that?
Stop taking us back. Take us forward, please.
What was Israel meant to do? Was Israel just meant to let these suicide bombers come in willy-nilly?
No.
No, they had to get
any normal civilized society.
They would do what we did in Northern Ireland. That's what they could have done. To actually operate a security system that didn't target either accidentally or deliberately innocent civilians.
Yes,
that's the only cross. That's the only cross that the Israelis. That's the only cross that the Israelis are hung on.
But the whole ethos of this discussion is the Israelis are bad and the Gazans are good.
No, sorry, that's not what we're saying.
That's what is coming.
I'm saying.
But the impression I'm being left with here is that the Israelis are not allowed to defend themselves. If they do defend themselves,
listen carefully. The Israelis are allowed to defend themselves.
Yes,
and using Iron Dome to begin with. To try and send rockets at Israel is like using pea shooters, because the statistics will tell you the Hamas people are not succeeding.
I have friends in Tel Aviv.
96% of a success rate
I
at the moment.
have friends in Tel Aviv, and they will tell you that it is a very frightening experience when those sirens go.
Yeah, but
so to say that they're being hit with pea shooters,
Henry, Iron Dome is working.
That shows this latent anti-Semitism.
No, I'm not.
I must stop you there. Please, let me stop you there.
It comes across.
No, it may come across whichever way you want to pick it up. But I'm saying that the Iron Dome in place succeeds. It's protecting Israel. Israel has, and listen to me carefully, has the right to come out against Hamas, not against the families of Israel. And that's what's happening at the moment, where you have children being targeted. I'm not even going to say targeted. Children are being wiped out in whatever circumstance, and it is incumbent on the humanitarianism of Israel to conduct the war within the rules of war. And the Ban Ki-moon of the United Nations saying it's a moral outrage and a criminal act. Will
you accept that if Israel had have wanted to do what you're saying, this indiscriminate bombing, it could have sat back and not committed any ground troops whatsoever? Putting in ground troops has been the option that has been the most expensive for Israel in terms of losing their own people. Now, they could have sat back and obliterated that place. And that is what basically they're being accused of. Whenever they can show videos of them aborting missions continuously because of civilians being in the area. In terms of the figures as well, there are no accurate figures on the number of fatalities coming out of Israel.
There's enough things happening to allow the President of America to point the finger at them, the man who has supplied Iron Dome. There's enough things happening to allow Ban Ki-moon to point the finger at them. And all I'm saying in this debate, as I stand in the middle of it, let them go and take out Hamas. Leave the children alone.
Look, and that is what Israel wants to do. But as I've said before, if I'm shooting bombs at Martin and Martin starts shooting back at me to defend his family, and I take children and sat them in my lap and still keep shooting at Martin, at some stage Martin's going to say, look, I'm sorry about this, but this is what happens.
But again,
we don't know if that is a fact.
It may happen. It may happen on occasions, but I don't think it's happening.
Everything that Israel does wrong, as far as you're concerned, is a fact. But it's not a fact whenever it's Hamas.
No, but it's actually been recorded and documented.
It's
been recorded and documented.
And the imagery that's coming out of this.
To resolve the issue, can I make a proposal on resolving this issue?
Proposal coming.
From both.
You will.
Right,
well, let's hear Henry's first.
Gaza,
we're in the last 7 minutes.
Right. Gaza gets enormous amounts of international aid. To date, they have built huge tunnel systems to facilitate attacks.
Are you saying that they're using the aid they get to build the tunnels?
Absolutely, that's actually
so this is the
proved.
Aid, the NGAs, the non-governmental agencies supplying the aid are turning a blind eye to the creation of the tunnels.
Yes, absolutely.
I don't think the NGAs
because
are doing that.
Even if you look
Henry.
at the time the boat was coming in from Turkey loaded with cement, the Israelis said, look, please don't offload the cement because they're using it to do these tunnels. We will provide them with the cement to stop this. But what I'm saying is... approximately 10 billion euros a year in aid that goes into their infrastructure. Now, whatever way it's spent, it's clearly not being spent on hospitals, schools, or creating business. What I would think is that the Gazans need to hold elections and put people in there that really have the true what's best for their people at heart, and not not targeting Israel, and use that money to build a hotel infrastructure. There's loads of things there. They could do offshore banking. There's loads of things that they can do in Gaza. Gaza could rival Tel Aviv. Now,
please let it happen.
Please let it happen. And Israel has said that if they get a proper peace agreement, after being let down 8 years ago, evicting those 20,000 settlers...
Don't go back to 8 years. Stay where you're going.
Yes.
You're moving forward, and I like it.
But Israel is very, very afraid that if they allow all the infrastructure to be put in place, as soon as it's done, then they'll start bombing them again. It has to be a long-term settled agreement and allow the Gazans to develop and mature into a proper functioning democracy.
And maybe today the talks with Israel and Hamas in Cairo is the first step on the road you're talking about. Martin, you'd wanted another proposal.
I think that is the first step, but to get a lasting peace this time outside the 72 hours to 3 days, I think unless the Egyptians, the Americans and somebody today sits down, and I think something will have to happen, that the borders will have to be opened and let the Gazan people in and out, some sort of, not totally freely, proper security, but not the way they've been hemmed in this last 8 years. Yeah. And that's really what this is all about. But the Gazan people didn't create this war 28 days. I know, unfortunately, there were 3 poor Jewish teenagers were murdered. Fallen. It never was a fact yet.
But Martin, will you recognise that there was that peace agreement, that Israel did evict 20,000 settler families?
There was, but what happened at that time...
And that was very hurtful for those people because of their...
Totally, but at the time when they evicted, the other parts of the agreement didn't fall into place, probably on both sides, Henry. The fact that Hamas was the democratically elected party in Gaza for those years. That didn't suit the Israelis on the other side, so then they started to put in more sanctions.
Is there any element of common ground in Ireland?
You know the first thing Hamas done when they got power? The very first thing they done was they went to the central government and the Palestinian Authority, got the Fatah people, and threw them off the top of buildings, took them to the parks, or took them into the town squares and beheaded them.
But listen, we don't.
I understand.
That is the nature of Fatah. That is the nature of Hamas. Hamas are not a normal political party that you and I could go and do business with.
It is. May I say, if we're sort of citing outrages, what's been happening as a consequence of the events that Ban Ki-moon is talking about is an outrage as well.
They're all outrageous.
So what we're trying to do is to stop the outrages.
And we want to stop it all.
Yes.
I promise you, I have Israeli friends, and they yearn peace. The ordinary Israeli people, now I'm not talking about, I don't know any Israeli politicians, but the ordinary Israeli people absolutely crave for peace, probably more than anyone in the Middle East.
Gazans crave for peace too.
Gazans crave for peace, but they're not getting a fair say in what they want. They're running... They haven't even fuel for cars. The only power station they have, the Israelis took it out. Now, they knew by taking it out, it was going to destroy the hospital, people in hospital. Like, the whole thing is just...
Well, I think
disproportionate,
what we've done this morning, boys, we haven't gone to war here in the studio in Ireland.
No, we won't. We have to. We should learn from what happened in Ireland. And yes,
well, that's exactly what Kilclooney said.
Yes,
John Taylor said.
Yes,
he said appreciation of difference, appreciation and acceptance of people's right to exist allows for debate, allows for coming together, and we can make a future. We did it here. They can do it in the Middle East.
And yesterday, commemoration of the World War I beginning. People should have took a lesson from that and say, well, we can't let this happen. Now, it's on our own doorstep in the Ukraine at the moment. Now, we need to step back from that as well.
Yeah. Final words, boys. Henry, to you.
Well, I just hope and I pray every night, an earnest prayer, that there can be a settlement to this, that children can go about their duties or go about their lives without getting killed, and Israeli people can go about their lives as well with peace. And that's what I want.
That's Martin.
That's what I want. I want the slaughtering actually to stop in Gaza, because if it keeps continuing, Gaza won't exist in another 3 weeks. If Israel really wanted to go about their business, which a lot of the world seems to think was their aim at this minute in time. Now they've been stopped because of world concern at this stage. But if there isn't such, it is the Israeli government. It's up to the Israeli government to make this happen now, and it has nothing to do with the Jewish people. They are very unfortunate where they are. But I think if some of the leaders would say to the Israeli government, listen, enough is enough here. Let's be moderate in all this aspects.
We have found unanimity here this morning in your wish that the suffering ends. And your wish that the suffering ends. And at this moment as we talk in Cairo, the Palestinians, the Israelis, Hamas are talking. So maybe that's the way we're going. Gentlemen, thank you very, very much indeed for coming in.
Thank you, Ronan.
Shake hands.
Thank you, Henry.
God bless you.
All right.
Go well, take care. Thank you.
Ronan, thank you.
So you've got it, that's it. You are finished for today. The two men have come in. We've had a useful exchange of ideas. And let it be the start of understanding here at an Uri level. No need for these men to go to war, as they equally together hope that the war in the Middle East will come to an end. I'm Ronan Hand. I've had the privilege, the pleasure, the joy of being your host for the last 3 hours. And God willing, inshallah, I'll be here again tomorrow morning. What's the Israeli one for God willing? I'm not sure. But whatever it is,
shalom.
Shalom is a good one to put in. We wish you shalom, inshallah, God willing. I'll be here tomorrow. In the meantime, take care and be productive in whatever you do. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Ronan.